People love to talk about games from their childhood that deserve remasters, and every single time I have to stop them and say, "What the hell, you uncultured swine? How dare you not bring up Animaniacs the Great Edgar Hunt?" This game is pure chaotic cartoon energy trapped in the body of a cartoon collectathon 3D platformer, and yet it's been left to rot in the vault of forgotten gaming history. For those of you who, like me, played this game as a kid, you probably remember the wild mix of slapstick comedy, endless collecting, and bizarre missions it threw at you. I remembered it the same way. So, I went back and played it again as an adult, and now the real questions are, is Animaniacs the Great Edgar Hunt as good as we remember? How does it hold up in modern times? And does it really deserve a remake? Let's find out. So the plot kicks off with the evil bad guy, CC DeVille, steals all of the Edgars, basically the game's version of the Oscars, because he wants to hold them ransom in order to get a 10-picture contract with an unlimited budget. The man is literally flying around on a personal blimp, and yet he somehow needs more money to produce movies. Like, if you're gonna commit a felony, why not rob a bank or something and use that money to produce? Unfortunately for him, the Animaniacs also escaped from the Warner Bros. Water Tower and set out to get them back. Of course, CC DeVille is a complete buffoon and loses most of the Edgars and can't even commit the most wacky crime ever correctly, so our trio has to travel across 6 different worlds to collect an absurd amount of random junk and complete a bunch of ridiculous missions that range from herding sheep to Wild West shenanigans in order to recover all of the missing Edgars. In the end, they recover all the Edgars, save the day, and nothing really changes. The Warner Bros. And the Warner sister get thrown back into the water tower. CC presumably plots another cartoonishly stupid scheme, and we all pretend like this made perfect sense. I'll be honest, the plot is stupid as hell, but that's exactly what makes it entertaining. Sure, you have the obvious questions like why is CC DeVille even doing this when there's clearly better alternatives, and why are the Animaniacs even helping? But honestly, in this case, it doesn't really matter to me. The game was based on a cartoon that never really took itself seriously, being loaded with constant fourth wall breaks and absurd humor. The wacky, nonsensical story fits perfectly into the anything can happen chaos that the Animaniacs is all about. So, with a plot this wonderfully bonkers, you'd expect the gameplay to be just as wild. And luckily, the Animaniacs The Great Edgar Hunt doesn't disappoint when it comes to throwing you into a chaotic 3D platforming adventure. The platforming takes you across 6 different worlds, each set on a unique movie set. What I loved most is how distinct each stage feels. Different settings, different characters, and vibes that keeps things very fresh. My personal favorite characters, the angry Roman guy who can't go 2 sentences without cussing, and Dr. Scratch and Sniff, who's down so bad he literally tries to resurrect a dead woman to make her his wife. Bro, just download Tinder. A lot of the characters and moments are pretty funny, and I felt like they would belong in the show. And speaking of wacky characters, there's no way I can review this game without talking about the Pinky and the Brain missions. Because yes, the lab rat and his dim-witted sidekick are here, and yes, they're still trying to take over the world. These missions are fun little detours that reward you with key items and Edgars, and honestly, just seeing 2 of my favorite characters from the show pop up made me feel like a kid again. But then, I started asking the real questions. Where are the Slappy the Squirrel missions? The Good Feathers? Ralph the Guard? You're telling me we can get missions where I help a genius mouse with a world domination plan, but we can't even get one scene where Slappy insults everyone within a 10-mile radius, or a mission trying to get an Edgar out of Ralph's pocket while he's hunting you or something like that? It feels like this game invited a couple of the show's best characters, but then forgot to send the invites to half the cast. A missed opportunity doesn't even begin to cover it. Huge missed opportunity for world building in my opinion here. Speaking of the world, each world introduces characters with their own bizarre problems, and by helping them you can earn Edgars. In addition to these, each stage has its own special currency to collect. Hit 150 and 300 of these for extra Edgars and a hidden Chicken Boo Edgar as well, if you can figure out where Chicken Boo is hiding, that is. Stages also hide letters that spell out Acme, and finding them nets you a permanent health boost, which in my opinion helped a lot when I was preparing and doing the boss fight at the end. For a 2005 platformer, the movement and controls in the game are surprisingly solid. Jumps feel responsive, timing them is relatively easy, and the camera really never gave me that kind of headaches that older 3D platformers are infamous for. While platforming through the levels, you'll run into a decent variety of enemies that fit each stage's theme nicely. Yakko, Wakko, and Dot all have their own weapons. Yakko swings a hammer, Wakko throws punches with a giant glove, and Dot whacks enemies with a frying pan. But outside of the props, their movesets are basically identical. Standard attacks, spinning attacks, jump attacks, and ground pounds. I wish their animations and fighting styles was a little bit more unique, so the weapons actually played differently instead of just, being a skin that looked different. As you progress, you'll unlock gadgets for the Warner siblings that are crucial for finding Edgar's and other hidden items in the game. Most gadgets can be used by all three characters, but each sibling also have one exclusive gadget. Wakko's shovel digs up buried treasure, Dot's skirt lets her limbo under tight spaces, and Yakko's bombs can destroy heavy obstacles. These unlockables encourage replaying older stages to uncover new secrets, which I think is a decent touch. You can switch between the siblings, Donkey Kong 64 style, at designated switching stores, so backtracking in my opinion didn't feel that excessive, but the only problem here is that Wakko's shovel is so useful for the collectibles that I ended up playing as him for most of the time. The game doesn't really give as many reasons to use Yakko or Dot, which does make them feel a little bit underutilized. So yeah, controls are solid, platforming is fun, and the gadgets add some nice variety, but let's be real, if you're not digging holes as Wakko 90% of the time, you're probably doing something wrong. Overall, this is a 3D platformer I genuinely had a lot of fun with. The tasks you do for characters are varied, the NPCs themselves are mostly unique, and the constant collecting kept me engaged from start to finish without ever really feeling bored. That being said, I wish it was a better Animaniacs game. It nails the vibe and the humor, but too many key characters from the show are missing in my opinion. And not to mention Wakko ends up being so useful that Yakko and Dot barely get any spotlight. Does this game hold up? Surprisingly, yes. The mechanics are solid for a platformer of its era, and I genuinely think that if we got a remake or remaster today, it would still be a blast to play. So, can we please get a drum roll for the plot score of this game? I give this game a solid 6.5 out of 10. If you love collectathon platformers like I do, I definitely recommend giving this one a try. It's a quirky, chaotic trip worth taking. And that's my trip back into the chaotic world of Animaniacs the Great Edgar Hunt. If you enjoyed this review, do me a favor. Hit that like button so the YouTube algorithm knows that I'm not just shouting into the void. Drop a comment with your favorite childhood game that deserves a remake or remaster. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss the next game where I dig up another weird gem from gaming history. PlotArmorGames signing out.